20 forgotten medicinal plants that can save your life. Hello, herbalists. What if I told you that some of the most powerful medicines you could ever use are growing right now in a ditch near your house? Plants our grandparents knew by heart. They healed soldiers on battlefields. Modern science has just confirmed that they work. Today we're going to look at 20 of them. And I promise you that when you finish this video, you'll never look at a weed the same way again. Most people don't know it, but while we all rush to the pharmacy for every cut, cough, or pain, there are plants with real clinical evidence that have been healing humans for thousands of years. Aspirin is the perfect example. Today it is manufactured in laboratories using complex chemical processes. But for centuries, humans drank tea made from willow bark or from a flower that grows in the meadows of Europe. The result was the same: it lowered the fever, relieved the pain, and reduced inflammation. No side effects. No endless list of contraindications. That knowledge didn't disappear. We just forgot it. And today I'm going to help you remember it. We're going to rank them from impressive to absolutely incredible. Stick around until the end, because number 17 has over 2,000 years of documented use, and science has just confirmed that it's effective against antibiotic-resistant bacteria. And number 20 was the original aspirin before aspirin even existed. It's probably growing in a ditch near you right now. Let's begin. Number 1. Calendula officinalis, the flower of war. Imagine a medieval battlefield. No anesthesia. No saline solution. No antibiotics. Just mud, rusted metal, and open wounds that could become infected and kill a healthy man within days. What did medieval soldiers carry in their bags along with their sword and bread? Marigold flowers. It was called the flower of war because when there was no surgeon, antibiotics, or sterile equipment, calendula prevented a wound from becoming infected and helped it to heal cleanly. Historical records from the Crimean War and the American Civil War explicitly mention its use in field hospitals. And what does modern science say? Clinical trials published in dermatological journals demonstrate that calendula extracts accelerate healing in burns, surgical wounds, and skin lesions. They promote the proliferation of new tissue, reduce inflammation, and show real antimicrobial activity. The good news: it grows in almost any garden. To use it, you can infuse the dried flowers in olive oil for 4 weeks, strain, and apply directly to damaged skin. For minor cuts, scrapes, minor burns, and skin inflammations, it's one of the most trusted remedies available. And it's accessible to everyone. Number 2. Ca bush, Hippophyramnoides, the berry that repairs from within. There is a Tibetan medicine that very few people in the West have heard of. For centuries, in the Himalayas, monks and traditional healers used the small, bright orange berries of a thorny shrub to treat skin ailments, stomach ulcers, and altitude sickness. That shrub is the sea buckthorn. The reason it works is pure biochemistry. Its berries have an extraordinary concentration of vitamin C, E, A, omega-3, omega-6, omega-9. And something very rare in nature, omega-7. Palmitoleic acid, that omega-7, has a specific and powerful function: it repairs and regenerates the mucous membranes throughout the body. Clinical studies have shown significant improvements in dry skin, eczema, dermatitis, dry eye, and dryness of mucous membranes in general. It doesn't act superficially like a moisturizer. It works from within, repairing the cells that form those membranes. It's the difference between putting on a patch and actually repairing the damaged tissue. Number 3. Consuelda, Symphytum officinale, the bone soldier. Its English name says it all: knit bone. And that's not folk poetry. It's a clinical description. For centuries, when someone broke a bone or suffered a severe sprain, a poultice of comfrey leaves was applied externally to the affected area. Medieval doctors swore by it. And it turns out they were right. Comfrey contains a compound called allantoin. Allantoin actively stimulates cell proliferation. It causes cells to divide faster and damaged tissue to regenerate more quickly. Modern clinical trials with topical extract have demonstrated significant reductions in pain and functional improvements in sprains, acute lower back pain, and osteoarthritis. An important warning, and here on the channel we will always be rigorous about this: comfrey contains alkaloids that can damage the liver if ingested. For external use only. Never apply to open wounds. But when applied correctly to the skin, it is one of nature's most powerful musculoskeletal anti-inflammatories. Number 4. Mullein, Verbascum spp. The wild expectorant. There is a plant that grows along roadsides, in vacant lots, and in roadside ditches. Tall, with soft, velvety leaves, and a spike of yellow flowers. Most people ignore it or simply pull it up, thinking it's a weed. That plant is mullein, and for centuries it was the primary treatment for lung congestion, bronchitis, productive coughs, and colds with thick mucus. Why does it work? Because it contains saponins that act as natural expectorants. They don't suppress coughs. On the contrary, they make them productive. They help the lungs to mobilize and expel thick mucus. The difference is fundamental. Conventional cough suppressants block the cough reflex so it doesn't cause discomfort. The problem is that the mucus remains inside, accumulating. Mullein does exactly the opposite. It makes it easier for the body to do what it needs to do to truly recover. It is prepared as an infusion with dried leaves. Filter well before drinking, because the hairs on the leaves can irritate the throat. Number 5. Plantain, Plantago major, the medicine cabinet under your feet. You've stepped on this plant thousands of times. It grows in lawns, on dirt paths, in urban parks. That low-growing grass, with oval leaves and very prominent parallel veins, that can withstand being stepped on repeatedly without dying. That's plantain. And it is one of the most reliable natural first aid kits that exist. It has documented anti-inflammatory properties, antimicrobial activity, and proven healing capacity. When someone was stung by a bee or wasp, or cut themselves on a stone, the old solution was simple: take a plantain leaf, crush it between your fingers into a paste, and apply it directly to the affected area. The relief was fast. And it's not a placebo. The active compounds in plantain, such as aucubin and rosmarinic acid, have anti-inflammatory and antibacterial effects measured in the laboratory. The next time you're out in the countryside and something itches you, look at the ground. The solution is probably right there. Number 6. Island water, Achillea millefolium, the plant of Achilles. Its botanical name is no coincidence, Achillea. From Achilles. Greek legend says that it was the centaur Chiron who taught the hero Achilles to use this plant to stop the bleeding of his soldiers wounded in battle. Myth or not, the reality is that yarrow has real hemostatic properties. It stops bleeding. And it also has vulnerary properties, meaning it promotes wound healing. That combination made it a campaign companion of armies for centuries. Today we know that it contains achillean and other compounds that promote coagulation and reduce inflammation. Applied as a poultice to a bleeding wound, it can help stop the bleeding while the body activates its natural mechanisms. In infusion, it is also used to lower fever and reduce systemic inflammation. It grows in practically all of Europe and North America. In meadows, along roadsides, in gardens. That plant with thousands of tiny leaves, almost like green lace, that blooms in white or soft pink. That's the one with more than 2,000 years of clinical history behind it. We've brought 6 plants, herbalists. And we've already seen war-wound healers, cell repairers, natural expectorants, and pain relievers within easy reach. But now come the ones that almost nobody knows about. Those that herbalists keep to themselves. Those that ancient physicians considered their best weapons. Those that modern science is rediscovering with surprise. Stay. Because what's coming is the most interesting part of all. Number 7. Prunella, Prunella vulgaris, the one that always healed itself. Its English name is self-heal. The one that heals itself. And it's a name that perfectly sums up its philosophy. This plant grows in the most trodden, most stressed, most deteriorated places, and always survives. Medieval herbalists used it for wounds, mouth ulcers, and sore throats. And there's a specific biochemical reason for this: it contains anti-inflammatory and healing compounds that are especially effective on mucous tissues, the moist tissues inside the body. A concentrated infusion of prunella used as a gargle can noticeably soothe a sore throat. And unlike conventional mouthwashes, it doesn't destroy the natural oral flora. It's one of those plants that goes completely unnoticed. And those in the know have been using it in silence for centuries. Number 8. Agrimony, Agrimonia eupatoria, the astringent of medieval sages. In medieval pharmacopoeia, agrimony was so highly valued that it appears in medical manuscripts from monasteries throughout Europe. It was used for digestive problems, sore throats, and slow healing wounds. Why did it work? Because of its tannins. Tannins have astringent properties. They tighten and tone inflamed tissues, reduce membrane permeability, and create a kind of protective barrier over irritated mucous membranes. As an infusion used as a gargle, it effectively soothes a sore throat. Taken internally, it can help with mild diarrhea by toning the intestinal walls. It's an unassuming plant with small yellow flowers that grows along roadsides and in meadows. One of those plants that goes unnoticed but that those in the know always seek out. Number 9. White Horhor, Marubium vulgar, the original cough drop. Do you know where horehound cough drops come from, the ones they used to sell in old pharmacies and that you can still find in specialty stores? From this plant. White horehound is an expectorant. It stimulates bronchial secretions and facilitates the expulsion of mucus. Its use is documented in virtually all Mediterranean and North African cultures. The key difference with modern cough suppressants is the same as with the mullein we saw earlier: it doesn't suppress the cough. It makes it productive. It helps the lungs to truly cleanse themselves, instead of simply turning off the body's alarm signal. It's bitter. Quite bitter. But that bitterness is part of its action. The bitter compounds stimulate the digestive and bronchial receptors, activating the natural cleansing process. Number 10. Eupatorium, Eupatorium perfoliatum, the flu remedy of the 19th century. In the 19th century, before modern antivirals existed, when the flu season arrived, botanical doctors prescribed eupatory. It was called boneset in English, because the muscle pain from the flu was so intense that it was described as if the bones were breaking. And the eupatory relieved exactly that: the fever, the chills, and those deep muscle aches that make the flu so debilitating. The infusion is extremely bitter. It's not pleasant to drink. But for centuries it was taken at the first sign of illness, piping hot, to induce sweating and help the body fight the infection on its own. Today, modern medicine still lacks an effective antiviral treatment for seasonal flu in healthy individuals. The advice remains: rest, fluids, and paracetamol. Perhaps it would be worthwhile to look again at what they already knew 150 years ago. Number 11. Blue verbena, Verbena hastata, the tonic of the nervous system. In today's world, where chronic anxiety affects 1 in 5 people, there is something remarkable about the existence of a plant that herbalists have used for centuries as a nerve tonic, with gentle calming effects that do not sedate or numb. Blue vervain, which grows on river banks and in damp soil, was used for mild anxiety, accumulated tension, onset insomnia, and nervous exhaustion, that state in which you are exhausted but cannot relax. It's not a plant that hits hard like a sedative. It's more subtle. It acts as a regulator. It lowers the overactivation of the nervous system without shutting it down. It's the difference between calming and numbing. For people who do not want to resort to anxiolytics due to the risk of dependence, and whose anxiety level does not require prescription medication, blue vervain is a natural tool with centuries of documented use and a very favorable safety profile. Number 12. Helenium, Inula helenium. The long-term lung tonic. Not all plants act quickly. Elecampane is one of those that work slowly but deeply. It has been historically used for persistent lung infections, chronic bronchitis, and persistent coughs. The root contains compounds such as inulin and allantogliptone, with documented antimicrobial properties and effects on the bronchial mucosa. Inulin is also a powerful prebiotic. It nourishes beneficial gut flora, which has systemic effects on immunity. It turns out that taking care of your gut and taking care of your lungs are more closely linked than we thought. Elenium isn't for this week's acute cold cough. It's for lungs that haven't been quite right for months. It's a tonic for slow and deep recovery. Number 3. Spilance acmella. The anesthesia of nature. This seems like magic. It's not. If you ever chew a spilance flower, in less than 30 seconds you'll notice an intense tingling in your mouth that turns into numbness. That effect can last between 20 minutes and half an hour. The compound responsible is called spilanthol, and it has a real local anesthetic activity, measurable in the laboratory. Historically, it was used for toothaches in areas where there was no dentist, for painful mouth ulcers, and to provide immediate relief from sore throats. It doesn't cure cavities. It doesn't resolve infections. But as temporary relief while you get medical care, it's remarkably effective. And it's available at medicinal plant nurseries or easily grown in pots. Number 14. Oregon grape, Mahonia aquifolium. The one validated by dermatology. This is one of the few plants on this list that has controlled clinical trials published in high-impact dermatological journals. It's not tradition. It's evidence. Oregon grape contains berberine and other alkaloids with antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory properties. Applied topically as a cream or extract, it has shown significant improvements in mild to moderate psoriasis and dermatitis. Psoriasis is an autoimmune disease that affects millions of people, and conventional treatments are often expensive, have side effects, or stop working over time. The fact that a plant can offer real relief, with a solid safety profile, is news that deserves far more attention than it receives. The results aren't immediate, it requires continuous use for several weeks. But for those seeking evidence-based alternatives, this is one of the strongest available. Number 15. Yellow sorrel, Rumex crispus. The liver and the skin. There is a connection that traditional medicine understood long before modern medicine. The health of the skin reflects the health of the liver and digestive system. Yellow sorrel, with its long, wavy leaves that grow in meadows and damp areas, was used as a cleansing herb. Its bitter compounds stimulate liver function and digestion, helping the body to eliminate metabolic waste more effectively. The traditional result was an improvement in skin problems such as eczema or acne that did not respond to topical treatments. This is not because sorrel acts directly on the skin, but because it improves the function of the system that processes and eliminates what the body does not need. A perfect example of systemic medicine, treating the root of the problem instead of the visible symptom. Number 16. Usnea. The natural antibiotic that grows on trees. This isn't a plant. Technically, it's a lichen, the symbiotic association between a fungus and an alga. It grows hanging from tree branches in damp forests, that grayish, spongy beard you see on old trees in areas with clean air. And it contains one of the most potent natural antimicrobials known, usnic acid. Historically, it was applied directly to wounds as a natural antiseptic in areas where medicines were unavailable. Usnic acid has documented antibacterial activity against a wide range of bacteria. There's something else I find fascinating. The usnea only grows in areas with very clean air. It's a bioindicator of environmental quality. Where there's air pollution, the usnea disappears. If you see it hanging from the trees in your area, it means the air you breathe is exceptionally pure. A natural antibiotic that also functions as an environmental indicator. Nature, herbalists, never ceases to amaze. The last 3. From impressive to absolutely incredible. Number 17. Barberry, Berberis vulgaris. The secret weapon of 2,000 years. 2,000 years. That's how long the documented history of barberry's use as a medicinal plant is. Ayurvedic practitioners used it in India. Persian physicians used it in the 10th century. Traditional Chinese medicine has known of it for millennia. And what does modern science say? That they were right. Completely right. Barberry contains berberine, one of the most studied natural compounds in pharmacology today. And the results are, quite literally, extraordinary. Berberine has documented antimicrobial activity against bacteria, fungi, and parasites, including, and this is what left me speechless when I read it, some strains of bacteria resistant to conventional antibiotics. At a time when bacterial resistance is considered one of the greatest threats to global health in the 21st century, the fact that a natural compound with 2,000 years of use has activity against resistant bacteria is no small matter. It's huge news that should be front-page news everywhere. But there's more. Berberine has also demonstrated anti-inflammatory effects, beneficial effects on glucose metabolism in patients with type 2 diabetes, and cardioprotective properties. Some researchers call it nature's metformin, comparing it to one of the world's most prescribed diabetes drugs. Barberry is a thorny shrub that produces edible, very acidic, red berries. It grows in hedges and forest edges. And it has been used for 2,000 years by cultures on 4 continents, patiently waiting for modern science to pay attention. Now it is. And what it is finding is impressive. Number 18. Red clover, Trifolium pratense. The natural answer to menopause. Here's something to think about. Before synthetic hormone therapies for menopause existed, women in many cultures used plants with mild estrogenic activity to relieve symptoms, hot flashes, dryness, insomnia, mood swings. Red clover, that common plant that blooms in meadows almost all over the world with its characteristic pink flowers in the shape of a small ball, contains isoflavones with mild estrogenic effects. They are not hormones. They are phytoestrogens, compounds that interact with the body's estrogen receptors in a much more modulated way than synthetic hormones. Studies in perimenopausal women have shown reductions in the frequency of hot flashes and improvements in sleep quality. In addition, its properties have been historically used for chronic skin problems and for cardiovascular health, another area where phytoestrogens have documented effects. It's a gentle medicine. It doesn't work in days, but in weeks. But for those seeking natural alternatives with real evidence, red clover deserves serious consideration. Number 19. Sassafras, Sassafras albidum. The most important lesson on this list. This plant deserves a moment of honesty. And on this channel, you know that honesty comes first. Sassafras was for centuries one of the most popular remedies in North America. Indigenous peoples used it. European colonists adopted it. In the 19th century, it was one of the most valuable exports from the American continent. It was used for fever, rheumatic pains, skin problems, and as a general tonic. And then science came along. It discovered that sassafras contains safrole, a compound with potential liver toxicity and carcinogenic properties in animal studies. As a result, the FDA banned its use as a food additive, and its regular consumption is not recommended today. Why am I including a plant that is not recommended for use? Because it is the most important lesson on this entire list. Tradition is not synonymous with safety. Just because something has been used for centuries doesn't guarantee it's harmless. Science plays an irreplaceable role in validating, refining, and sometimes rejecting what tradition has proposed. Herbal knowledge and modern science are not enemies. They are complementary. And sassafras is the perfect example of why we need both working together. Always. Without exception. Number 20. Metasweet, Filipendula ulmaria. The original aspirin. And we've reached the end. Number 20. I want you to think about this for a moment. One of the most widely used medications on the planet, one of the most important drugs in the history of modern medicine, was synthesized in 1897 based on a compound that this plant produces naturally. Aspirin. Its active ingredient, acetylsalicylic acid, is a modified version of salicylic acid, which Metasweet produces naturally in its flowers and leaves. Before Felix Hoffmann synthesized aspirin in the Bayer laboratory, Europeans had been drinking infusions of this plant for centuries to treat pain, fever, and inflammation. And there's something fascinating about the difference between synthetic aspirin and the original plant. Synthetic aspirin, isolated and concentrated, is more potent in individual doses. But it's also harsher on the stomach. Gastric irritation is one of its most common side effects with prolonged use. Medisweet, on the other hand, contains salicylates in a complex plant matrix that includes mucilaginous compounds that naturally protect the gastric mucosa. The result, the same anti-inflammatory effect, but without the irritation. Nature put the medicine and the stomach protector in the same package. And when the pharmaceutical industry isolated only the active ingredient, it lost that natural protection. It grows in Europe, on riverbanks and damp meadows. It has creamy white flowers with a sweet, distinctive scent. And it's been there all along, waiting. Just like all the others. We've reached the end of a list of 20 plants. But this list isn't an inventory. It's an argument. The argument is that nature has been solving biological problems for millions of years. That human knowledge accumulated over centuries is not superstition, but empirical observation. That modern science, when it bothers to study these plants, frequently confirms what we already knew. I'm not telling you to abandon modern medicine. Please don't do that. I'm telling you to broaden your definition of medicine. The next time you pass by a wild plant, instead of ignoring it, ask yourself, what is this for? What did those who lived before me know about this? When you go to the doctor and they prescribe something, be curious to also investigate whether there is a natural supplement with evidence that can support your recovery. And above all, remember this: the oldest medicine in the world grew unsolicited, unregistered, unpatented. It grew in ditches, meadows, hedges, and along the edges of the paths your grandparents walked. She's been waiting all this time for you to look at her again. The question isn't whether these plants work. Science is already answering that. The question is, are you willing to stop ignoring what was always there? If this video has opened your eyes to a world you didn't know existed, or reminded you of something you'd forgotten, support the channel with a like and share it with someone who also needs to see it. And tell me in the comments, which of these 20 plants surprised you the most? Which ones did you already know? Is there one you'd like us to explore in depth in a future video? I'm particularly impressed with Medisweet. The aspirin that grew in a meadow for centuries before we knew how to synthesize it in a lab. Until next time, herbalists. Take good care.